Two Trek folks you should know. Today, episode 301 of Trekland Tuesdays live with me, Dr. Trek, boom, Larry Nemecek. There's the proof. Coming at you from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 on a Trekland Treks and bringing you clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. Busy day, a busy week. A lot of things are happening, and we've even got breaking news today, which will be, not so new by the time you're watching this live later. But if you're with us live, you should know that for some reason, not waiting until first contact day in a couple of weeks. But we now know that season 2 of Strange New Worlds, which is no secret, is going to premiere not until June 15th, 2023. They've also technically said Lower Decks is premiering late summer 2023, which is also the standard window. And then Prodigy this winter. So if you give 10 weeks to late summer, that gets you into September, October, in November sometime. We'll see. No dates on those, but we've got the date, June 15th, for Strange New Worlds Season 3. And as you know, once Picard wraps up in this amazing season of a wrap-up, it will end technically, and then Discovery has been bumped to next year. Its season 5 will be the last, technically canceled, but it's being ballyhooed at the same time. More of a cutback, and something had to go, so take the oldest show, and I don't know. Why would you cancel in the other ones that have barely had 3 seasons at most? So that's the way that fell. People have been talking about that already for a couple of weeks. That's not news. What's news is we're going to have a month here, over a month, of no Trek. What will that feel like? And then will we eventually have 50 weeks a year again? We'll see. The initial prognostication is maybe they cut back the initial out-of-the-gate budget for Discovery Strange New Worlds, Discovery, which was 2017 when they were kind of inventing what Star Trek on streaming and much less what CBS All Access would look like. And some of that initial overhead may not be a thing now, and the world has gotten leaner, meaner, and smarter about how to do these shows live action. We'll see. We'll see. And all the uncertainty and the turnover and the chaos of the birth that happened with Discovery. And if Strange New and much less Picard are smarter shows on the production and on the overhead. But you're going to say that breaking news is cool to know, but it has nothing to do with my topic this week. Two folks you should know. There are so many folks in the Trek community, and as we're figuring out, the in front of the camera folks and that huge backstage contingent are multiplying like crazy with all these series. And then we've got Animation World, 2D and 3D, much less live action. And apparently with the end of Picard, which was a stipulation to film in LA from Sir Patrick, once he's not involved, ostensibly, we would think all the production's going to go back to Toronto. So boo-hoo, boo-hiss from the LA side of things. It was nice to have Star Trek back where it should be. That's a huge community of people. And a lot of folks are flying from LA up to Toronto in different fields. A lot of people can sit wherever their home office is or their group office is and do their work. Looking at you, visual effects, and looking at you, art department especially. It's all over. But the fact is, the bottom line is their sheer numbers are multiplying. There's so many people working in Trek, and we're getting around, starting to now finally, now that the clench is over, some of the Picard folks, some of the earlier Disco folks are turning up, and you're seeing interviews with them. You're seeing them get out there, get their due. We're getting them into Portal 47, even turning up here, hopefully some Tuesday perhaps, in the future. We've got years and years of creative folks from this era to talk to now. That's kind of what brought up today's topic. The funny thing about Star Trek is we talk about what's on camera and what's behind the camera. But once things are set in motion, there's a ripple effect. And we've got merchandise side of things. We've got the publishing and the merch. We've got the entire event field, right? Whether they're licensed or not, fan cons, fanzines. I mean, there's a whole realm here. The initial incident was Desilu 1964, 65, 66 to NBC, to that AMT model kit celebrating its anniversary last year. Just all kinds of ripple effects from Star Trek that have nothing to do with what's shot on a soundstage. Eventually, it all begins there or in the writer's room. And I was really shook last night. And if you follow my socials, you'll know what I'm talking about, or maybe you have a clue. But I really, yeah, I was just a little shook up here. Somebody that one of those ripple effect worlds, which was amazing if you were lucky enough to be part of it in any of its fields. But I'm talking about Star Trek: The Experience, the late great lamented live action franchised ride, retail store, museum, restaurant bar, wonderful, wonderful little fantasy, a little bubble into Star Trek in our universe of real Star Trek that you could experience yourself, that existed for about 10 years from 1997 to 2007. 2008, excuse me, 2008, Labor Day 2008. It was about a year behind getting off the ground, was years in the making. Lots of folks. We just had Gary Goddard as a guest on the Trek Files late last season, talking about some new storyboards of an early version of what if you were lucky enough to be there, count yourself blessed. If you just missed it or had a chance and you've been mourning it ever since, I feel for you. And if none of what I'm saying right now makes any sense at all, there's places you can go research. It deserves a documentary, much less a coffee table book. Good old The Experience was something. And it set the stage. All the hullabaloo now about the Star Wars live experience down at Disneyland and all that. Once again, Star Trek was ahead of the curve here. An adventure ride, an experience ride on top of a museum, on top of a, and in the destination center of Las Vegas. And what struck me as someone who was on the beginning end, there's a world of the planning that Gary Goddard would represent, and everybody who worked at Landmark and all the studio people, accessories from Herman Zimmerman and the Akutas on down to me and my type, everybody working on various capacities. That's one world, but then that was all geared on opening it up. And then once it was open, it had a life of its own, and everybody who had planned to set it up, with one exception, the update in 2003 with the Borg ride edition, the Borg encounter, that was another bubble of activity. But aside from that, the makers were hands off and dearly departed, and the doers kept it alive day to day for 8 years. And if you're a fan who went there, you didn't know who made it. You knew these faces. You knew the walking characters. You knew the characters in both rides for all the live action events. And then, yes, it did close down. And as much as I was around at the beginning and then visited over the years, it wasn't until it was closing that I really dawned on me what an impact those people had. And a lot of you have been able to meet them in the day. They all had their fans. There was a goodbye banquet at the closing that had nothing to do with the studio or with even creation in Star Trek Las Vegas, but the experience itself put it on. It was a very emotional closing moment. And in the middle of all that, all the personalities that came and went, and my dear friend April Hebert, who was the first actor hired, played several roles and was the last one off the time station. They even had to retcon a whole history for the thing to explain a Star Trek experience in the middle of Las Vegas in name the current year. And even that was retconned in the best Star Trek tradition by the people who were there left to do it every day. Wasn't part of what was given them. It wasn't built and it wasn't handed them in a manual. They created that. And one of the creators at the time, and even more so since then, was a guy named Vernon Wilmer that I got to know. And over the years, helped organize the 20th anniversary of the opening party at Las Vegas. This is where this is taken. And there's some of those big character posters behind. It was a great reunion / party. Probably no more than 100, 150 people there at most. And just he can do more than pose like that. But anyway, we just learned last night, and some of the, again, following my socials, that we lost Vernon by his own hand, which just conjured up all kinds of emotions. Some of you here in the TTLers might have met Vernon, might have known him if you were a Vegas visitor to the ride and the experience. He was in crew. He did a Borg character in the encounter. But I really knew him more from the end of the time, the last 10, 15 years, keeping this alive. Vernon became, who had a lot of skill as an editor and graphics, and as that became a thing, YouTubing and editing and homemade media, and how professional can you be? Vernon became the repository for everybody's. He was kind of the central hub. He kept up with all the actors and the retail, anybody who worked in any capacity, because there were the retail clerks, there were the people, people that worked in the, not so much the people that worked in the kitchen and the wait staff, but all the walking characters, the people in the ride, people who worked the front, the ticket counters and worked in retail. And then a lot of us on the side too. He kept up with that, kept up with the database, he became the repository for everybody's memories. He was the memory well. Their pictures, their images, their video, and oh my God, it was the 90s into the aughts, and people were shooting video like crazy, unlike old school Star Trek. This stage and these sets have lots of tons of video, and he was working on a documentary called Star Trek My Experience, and he had several chapters done, which I thought were gone, but they are up. They're archived. I found them last night. And, a lot of it's low res camera video from the time, but images, and also repository of things like, local Las Vegas news reports or promotional pieces done, and all out there. And I got used to just seeing Vernon every year in Las Vegas. And at the 20th party that he helped organize with April and others in January 2017, which I can't believe has been that long ago. Thank you, pandemic. And I realized last night that it had didn't make it to he was boycotting the Bally's Vegas. I thought I saw him in 2021. I cannot find a picture. I know we crossed paths and partied together a little bit. Just a funny guy, great to have at your parties. Could be annoying at times, but the best people are. But the fact that he was collecting all this history and loved it so much and loved the experience and loved so many of the people that worked there and was kind of the nexus in the best way for all these people to hub and stay in touch, put up the Facebook page for all of them. And it was just kind of, whenever I needed something to know something about the experience or even something local to Las Vegas, when there was, after the shutdown and the talk about a guy named Rohit Joshi, yes, and his plan to reopen the experience in a building he owned in downtown Vegas is revitalizing. Checking in then, didn't come to pass, obviously. Then on top of everything else in an insanely busy week, I get the news last night that Vernon's no longer with us, and I did not know that he was in that kind of pain. I know the pandemic was rough on Las Vegas, obviously, as an event place, live action. It was horrible on Las Vegas, and as a city that lives on tourism and jobs and situation but I was looking forward to having real Star Trek Vegas back at the Rio, a normal STLV again, hopefully, and getting back in touch and catching up. So Kirsten Sapansky, who wrote this on his own site and posted it, it's a closed page. I started to post this and then realized the links weren't working. So I copied this into my Facebook and my channels and put it up to share it. Because if you were at the experience, especially the later years or the years since, and enjoyed everything about it, and you're missing it, well, one of the people that was helping keep it alive, if not the number one person to help keep the memory of the experience alive and its archive of people and memories and moments and video and image, was Vernon. And it's just it was just a shock to hear this last night. So I don't, we want to treat this mental health as a serious condition. If anyone you know is in a dark place, it's probably not situational. It's probably endemic. And we've got to reform, every time they intersect with the gun universe, we're once again reminded about how woefully we support the mental health needs of our nation and our citizens. It just makes me realize again here that with pandemic disassociation, with pandemic distance, it's bad enough for the people across town, but the folks that you didn't get to see when you traveled, not having really seen Vernon, I'm thinking now since like 2018 or 2019, barely. Couldn't find any good selfies. These photos, the last ones, were from 2018. Anyway, it's a good lesson once again on a personal level to just check in with everybody. We've all been through some rough times. This damn pandemic and economic distress and all of that, and the wrenching and the uproar that can be. So I did not want to bring us down today. I wanted to glorify and I wanted to celebrate Vernon and his life and his contribution as someone who never earned a paycheck from Paramount or CBS or even Desilu. He earned a paycheck from Paramount Parks, and he earned a paycheck from whoever was writing the checks at the Hilton or Cedar Fair when Paramount Parks was spun off and Cedar Fair wound up buying most of the attractions, which were mainly theme parks, except for the wonderful anomaly that never existed in any other like form, quite like Star Trek The Experience. So very much a professional, very much a funny guy, very much a talented guy. He would create videos. He would create Star Trek videos and enter them in Star Trek video contests. I think one or two of the ones that Creation would sponsor during Trek Vegas, over the years he would enter and place, if not win. And the work is out there. I'm going to make sure the links are up as we post this, and you can see. I was shocked. I thought they'd all been taken down, but they're still there. He had 4 chapters of Star Trek My Experience done, and then probably real life got in the way, and then probably the darker side of real life and things he was having to wrestle with. And I just wish I had known more, although I'm not quite the distance here. And just, it's the kind of thing where you want to just tell somebody, don't you know how much you were appreciated and loved? And it's too late now. So what I'm doing here is, as all of his friends locally in Vegas figure out what to do here, as Kirsten says, is to share this with you and to share this with the permanent record, to get the word out. And hopefully what he was working on here, the whole experience exhibit, the whole experience of the experience, from its creation and glimmering light and the wacky stories about the giant Enterprise-shaped hotel right there on Las Vegas Boulevard, all the way to what eventually was built and the delays and the insane amount, the unprecedented amount of cooperation from all arms of Paramount, old school Paramount before the divorce, and the Hilton there in Vegas. All of that, and the local authorities in Vegas and all the people that worked on it just to get it open. And then the life the experience had once it was open, when it seemingly changed hands from the builders to the doers. And then all the great years it was entrusted to them. And then I want to say betrayed by short-sighted hotel people, not the studio and not Cedar Fair, the spinoff owner, but the studio. Almost no one at the hotel had faith in the event as soon as it turned over the first time. And their arrogance and short-sightedness quickly led to spiraling down the hotel. Not that it was the experience's fault, but quickly they lost their Hilton branding, and quickly they lost that ownership. And it's now in the market to be senior housing, whatever, with the convention center still down the way, where Star Trek Las Vegas Creations Convention was held every year until 2010, I believe, a couple of years after the experience closed. So all the glorious memories being kept alive by efforts, none of which were surpassed by what Vernon was putting together. It all deserves a documentary of its own. It all deserves not one coffee table book, a 2-parter. And in that world, Vernon was a shining light, really. I'm just so sad that things went dark. But I wanted to share him with you, and all kinds of photos. If you check out some of the folks that knew him, Kirsten's name there, April Hebert, and it's spelled Hebert. But if you check out a lot of the Facebook pages, I know you're going to see a lot of fun things. And if you ever had a chance to meet Vernon, if you were at the experience or if you were at STLV at Trek Vegas and happened to cross paths, he was not a big con goer. He prepared his own version of a lobby con event, maybe. When we did have a couple of panels, actual panels for the experience on the program, that folks, we had the anniversaries going by, I think he was part of that. But now you know the rest of the story, and why so many of us were, in shock. This may have been the last, I'm trying to remember now, this Vegas 2018 may have been the last time I saw Vernon, which is insane to me. But again, we take our close folks for granted, or even our associates and the folks we love from afar, that we don't see that often, and Zoom has spoiled us. So there you go. I wanted to make sure that Vernon's story was shared. Now, there's another story that I want to share, and I want to make sure that you know about it from this end. There's another good friend that I haven't seen as much of in recent years as I did earlier, but all through the 90s and the aughts, in that storied art department, there was nobody better, and nobody who helped, again, in the best Star Trek way, get the most bang for the buck out of their budgets. When you had model makers who were basically giving models free because they knew they wanted it to look better, they were trying to stretch the pre-digital budget for visual effects and art, and all that storied art department, and everybody through all the department, the makeup and costume, everybody, and the writers sitting in their room getting paid for it, sure, but putting in the extra mile because people cared about Star Trek in every iteration 95% of the time. And it showed. And one of them in that storied art department, eventually, as things got big enough to be able to afford and hire him, was my friend Jim Vanover. And had a long career, especially in that art department, of Mike Okuda and Doug Drexler and the great Anthony Fredrickson. But Jim kind of pioneered, after Mike did it a little bit with the stone knives and bearskins he had during the TNG era, by midway on Deep Space Nine and early in Voyager, being able to do video as the technology evolved to do it. Jim basically handled all the moving Okudograms and other things as well. But Mesa, especially, he was technically a scenic artist like the rest of them, but his specialty was in the video and pioneering what could be done with a lot of that. And before it mogrified over to CG by midway later Voyager and Enterprise, or the setup for what CG artists can Eden Effects Foundation could take and run with eventually. And that was his, and that's what he worked on for years afterwards in the industry. And when the model for how that, it was rare for a show to have its own hired in visual effects, graphic, digital animation person like that. Well, it was rare for a lot of things that Star Trek did. It was rare for any show to still have 30 and 40 piece orchestras scoring the music, but Star Trek did that. And it was rare to have it. After the Star Treks ended and went to one show and ended, Jim worked for a long time with a company, a vendor, that basically did that same function for several shows at a time. And he would have credits on lots of shows. Or in the day, not have a credit maybe, especially when he was working in there. Unlike today, when everybody and their dog catchers, walkers, milkmans, grannies, house sitter, when everybody, and that's good on that to happen. But it's so unfortunate that so many folks back over the years, like Janet, don't have their name on every episode, and it's misleading. And that's one of the things that we should all be doing, is trying to make sure that you cannot just go by IMDb's if people are looking at screen credits, because lots of people got paychecks and jobs and creatively added to the show you enjoy. And we're always trying to bulk up the screen credits. Well, that's the way Jim was at times. He would be in a rotation for who got the scenic artist credit over the years. Well, here's the thing. Jim's been working great. He's got two wonderful sons who are working in the industry. Is Jim Vanover Jr. is an up-and-coming actor. He's had a rough year. A lot of you are well aware of how our beloved Doug, that was just with us last week, lost his wife of long years, Dorothy Duder of the Duderstadt Honoration class. Jim also lost his wife last year, Nikki. A rough year. And unlike Doug, grieving and mourning and taking the support of friends, not quite as publicly, not nearly as publicly as Doug. Not at all a recluse, but it was that kind of a year. Well, what's been really tough now is just in the last few weeks, Jim has had a diagnosis of tumor and has gone through surgery and is getting treatment, brain tumor, lesions and things. And I just want to share this with a GoFundMe. Here we go. He is out of the hospital. There he is with his two great sons. And he has started a GoFundMe campaign. Has insurance doing that, but all kinds of things. It's basically the after effects are affecting his balance, and he's doing physical therapy. He's not, not where he can't walk, but it's a balance thing and a confidence thing, and making adaptations around the house. So he started a GoFundMe, not one to do this, but this is the times we live in the country and the system we have. And at the urging of family and friends, started this GoFundMe purely for home health aid, which insurance doesn't cover, some home, assistance. Again, he lost Nikki last year, so it's either a blessing or not that the timing has happened this way. Nothing you would wish on anybody in any case, but as far as looking for all of his family and friends in the Star Trek community and the greater wide Hollywood community that he's known and worked with on a lot of different shows over the years. After Enterprise went down, he worked on that 1 year season of show that Brannon had called Threshold, that Brent Spiner was on, and actually used a few people hanging around Paramount the year after Enterprise went away. But so many, you could go to his IMDb and check out all the series he's worked on in the 15 plus years since, and still has plenty more good years to go. But he's doing this for the things insurance doesn't cover as he recovers at home. So I wanted to let you all know about Jim. I've invited him. I was inviting him onto Portal for a while. He shared with clubs and locals. I used to love doing that in Enterprise days and the first couple of years out. Then he got really, really busy, not so much leaning into his Trek work. Jim would think that all the shining lights we know of from the art department were the real artisans, and he was just the technician, which is bull hockey. Jim had some wonderful magical things and insights and his own Trek love that he pulled in to the mix, just the way they did then, just the way Dave Blass and the new folks and the Golden Years team that he's reached out for. The thing that's being celebrated on Picard right now, well, that was Jim back in the day. He very much had a lot to do, had a lot of fun. And you do his memory alpha, you'll see. And yes, wound up on an awful lot of those crew manifests, whether he was a USPA officer in Enterprise or he was in Starfleet or whatever. And anyway, I wanted to make sure and boost the signal here. He's well on his way. And, this is GoFundMe, and this is spotlighting the high donors. But bear in mind, there's an awful lot of $10 and $20, $50 donations and more. So just putting it out there. It's obviously not fair. The world has not been fair to an awful lot of people. You could even say all of us this last year. And Jim's had a rough patch, and good on him. Yay that he's making recovery and all of this. He's just needing a little extra help and needing kind of help that insurance doesn't always pin for, as we are all so well known. So I wanted to join all of our friends and colleagues that knew Jim and boost the signal out here in my way, as a lot of them are doing on socials, on Instagram and Facebook. Yes. So that's, a GoFundMe. If you're looking at James Vanover, you'll find that on GoFundMe. And we'll put links up, direct links here in a little bit. So, gang, I titled this 2 Trek Folks You Should Know today. And with all of the amazing, amazing work, as in love with, 99% of the world seems to be the way this season of Picard is unfolding. People have embraced it. People don't even think about talking about how much they like it. They're just so, people who are rusty at enjoying a Star Trek this much, people just can't get enough of it. So we've been blessed with an amazing spring here. We've got 4 more episodes, including this week. We will apparently now have mid-May to mid-June. We'll have a month off. Whatever shall we do? We'll find something. We'll have a month of hiatus before we dive back into Strange New World. And meanwhile, the focus has been back on Strange New World. Congratulations again, Justin, for winning our drawing for the DVD here last week. You're going to start seeing everything rotate back around to Strange New Worlds. That month might almost be a strategy because of the manic nature of the overlap. And I criticized that a little here. Not criticized, but pointed out that overlapping a finale with a premiere of a season almost robbed both series, whatever they were, of the attention they deserved, of all the love and attention and promotion they could have had. So I don't know, maybe this month in between is some breathing room to really, really celebrate what Picard turns out to be, and then celebrate the coming of Strange New Worlds and let them have their own oxygen. Maybe that's what's going on here. But it's still an amazing time, unlike we've seen in ages. We're warming up to the summer. Conventions are coming back. Hopefully, old man Omicron is going to leave us alone enough to be able to get back to some semblance of normal, but with all the twists, like whatever we can do virtually. And so, in the middle of that, I wanted to talk about Jim this week, and then I found out the news about Vernon last night, and I thought I'm gonna couch this in the guise of talking about two Trek people again, as I often do, folks. You may not know, and that's what the beauty of having this format is. And at the same time, someone you should know about that you may be able to help out a little bit, who has brought so much to the Star Trek we know, whether he wants to admit to it or not. That just the idea of how Enterprise's bridge graphics started out and the subversive plan to, as you watch season to season, especially the fourth season, as they began to migrate and start to look like those iconic, the colored rectangle lighted bridge monitor readouts from the original series. That whole world, how they were slowly evolving. They still had 100 years to go, but still evolving the Enterprise bridge, the NX-01 bridge readouts to go. He had a whole mind plan behind that, working with Mike, of course. I just wanted to say that. I wanted to say that again about two more folks you should know about. One who we can reflect on, and one who we can support as much as we can right now. And that's going to do it, gang. If you are watching us later, by the way, again, love to have you here live some Tuesday. If you can, join us. And in any case, whenever you're watching, make sure and like and subscribe and leave a comment. Jump in. Got to remind everybody before we move on, though, that I want to thank all of our Patreon folks. And that means our TTO Club. I want to make sure everyone's thanked and noted here. Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Ryan, Mona Mian, and Mias, and Andrew Jasimski. And our live wires, Robin McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Halbjorn Gunn Johnson, Alan Hoensi, David Gregory, Tobias Rex, our newest, and Casey Shafsky. Yes, that's all our Patreon folk. And you know what? We're growing finally here. It's happening bit by bit. If you want to jump in and help out, it's simple. It's only $5 and $10 a month. Patreon.com/TreklandLive. You go there, you might see something else you want to help out to. It's monthly. It's a shout out. And our $10 folk, our live wires, get access to early behind the scenes Portal 47 interviews, which will eventually update over the years. We're starting with the first couple of years right now. Love to have you helping us with growing our platform here. Of course, if you really want to deep dive Star Trek, you could just join us at portal47.net. But before I go there, I want to go here and remind everybody that the Trek Files is back. It is our 10th season. Speaking of Dave Blass, he's our guest for episode 2 that's up now. If you didn't catch the one with Jonathan Frakes last week, it was our season opener. Very proud of that one and this one as well. Give us a listen. The Trek Files is where the documents are as well as the audio, or you can get audio wherever fine podcasts are caught. It's hashtag Trek Files on Twitter. Podcast.roddenberry.com is where you can find all the Roddenberry podcasts in sci-fi world, in science world, led by the great Mission Log, of course. And across the interwebs, it's Larry Nemecek at Twitter, Mastodon, etc., etc. Larry Nemecek's Trekland is the YouTube. Like and subscribe. And Facebook and Instagram. Come over there, too, if you can. Portal 47, as I was saying, is where we have a mini-con all year long with all the packages. And yes, again, the Portales are going to enjoy Sandy Freeze. Had a very interesting and early pioneering moment with the Next Generation in the first season and has a lot of things to report on. So that's it, gang. Stay healthy, do all the things. Just every day doesn't go by, but I find out someone else doesn't have COVID still, isn't catching. It's out there. Probably not going to be their ending, probably be an annoyance, but it's out there. It's out there. We may, whatever our new normal settles into, we'll maybe adjusting some of what we do. But it's all for the good. We did it 100 years ago. People stopped spitting on sidewalks because of the Spanish flu. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most of all, I think even bigger is, I say stay woke. I mean, check the sources. I mean, be open to the history, to the facts that no one ever bothered to tell you before, as opposed to all the facts that seem too insane to believe because they are. Yeah. The world we live in. Truck well.